David Medeiros is the Geospatial Reference and Instruction Specialist at the Stanford Geospatial Center. He has a bachelor's and master's degrees in geography and geographic information science, as well as a long professional history in publication cartography. He has been making maps in one form or another for almost 30 years. And when not helping researchers utilize GIS tools in their work, he's using those same tools and process to make map posters and terrain models, some of which he sells in his Etsy shop called Map Bliss. Okay, David, thank you.
Thank you. So bear with me. Normally I want to talk to you guys sort of just off the hip, but because we have a time constraints and I tend to wander around and point at things a lot, I'm going to speak from a script to kind of just go over the basics here, and then I'll get into more informal and hopefully leave. I don't think I'll go quite 10 minutes, so maybe there will be time actually to just sort of have some interaction, some questions. So in my professional life, I am a geographer, GIS specialist, and GIS instructor here at Stanford University Libraries. I help researchers use geospatial tools to conduct their work. It's mostly technical work, teaching people who have no background in this stuff how to make or use maps in their research, academic research and analysis. Outside of that, in my other life, I have been a digital cartographer for over 25 years, maybe something like 27 years, making maps for publication. So maps not as analysis tools for research and statistical approaches, but maps as communication tools. I still do some freelance work making maps for books and magazines. That's what we're looking at here at the top. But mostly what I do today that's not sort of spatial work, GIS work, is map posters and other mappy things for myself and then eventually to sell through an online shop. These are not functional maps for the most part in the sense of being an analytical tool or a reference tool as a map. They're more map abstractions or mashups of geographic data using the same tools I would otherwise use for GIS or publication work. I do this as a form of creativity and expression, obviously. I'll pull some of that up right now so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. It's a form of creativity and expression. Obviously, I'm a maker by nature, so I have to always be fiddling and making things, and these are the tools I use every day. So maps just end up being kind of the thing I obsess and make about all the time. It's also a way to balance the technical work I do as a GIS professional here at Stanford. It's a way to exercise the problem-solving skills and creative muscles that do get used in helping researchers do their work. So this is a way to kind of stay plugged into another part of that work, the background that goes into helping people do the more technical work. My creative process follows a I want that, so let's make that mantra. It's just sort of I see things that I think are cool or neat, and I get obsessed about them, and then I need to sort of recreate or make my version of them to understand them or own them, and then share them with other people. So that could be, you know, a map I've seen, someone else's map, a sculpture, a data set, a color palette, anything that I think I can mash up into something new for myself. I make things I want first and then offer them for sale second. So I am the person I'm making maps and art for primarily, and then I'm just kind of using my online shop as a way to give them a second life and share them with other people that I think might be interested in them. Selling my work through a shop online is an excuse to have done the work in the first place, and I think this maybe differentiates me from the other artists in this panel. I'm not sort of doing this intentionally as art. I'm doing it things I want on my wall, and then letting other people have them as well. I don't feel like an artist. I feel more like a tinkerer and a maker. I'm making things I want, putting them out there as map art, knowing that other people will find them interesting as well. So that's the pre-written spiel. I'll just kind of go over some of what we're looking at here and then maybe just let people ask some questions. So the top of what we're looking at is, this is I have a whole bunch of different roles in the world of map making. GIS specialists with maps as analytical tools for research and analysis. It's the work I do here with staff and students and faculty. And then publication maps. So this is where I got my background in map making to begin with over 27 years ago, working for AAA in Northern California. And I learned sort of the tools I use for everything else I do today. There's artistry here, obviously, but it's maps for a communication role, and I'm taking instructions from the people who pay me to make these maps, right? So this is maps as contract work, although I think it's my style that goes into all this sort of stuff. but it's the same tools and processes I would apply to that sort of thing that I then use to make things that I'm interested in. So map abstractions, maps that have no purpose whatsoever other than to sort of just be something I want to look at. There's almost no information in this Dymaxion Fuller map of the world. It's just colors I wanted and an arrangement that I happen to be obsessed with. And so I have many, many versions of this map layout and all sorts of different arrangements and data sets in the background. This is just one example of it. Map recreations that I find. So if I find an old map that I think is interesting and I want to see what that would look like using modern tools, so the fog gaps and barriers of San Francisco Bay is a map that I just happened across when I was helping a student look for fog data. And I found an old newspaper clipping of something that looked like it had been published in the 30s or 40s. And I can't even find it online anymore, but I took a screenshot of it and recreated it in some style that I thought I wanted to see it in. Obsessions with topography. I love to do shaded relief. And so just doing shaded relief for the purpose of sort of playing with the many, many, many technical layers that go into what looks like a pretty simple map of Mount Hood, but it's actually this composite of a lot of different little things that go into it. There's a lot of, I guess, artistry that's involved in that sort of stuff. So again, it's not of any purpose other than it's an exercise to sort of play around with the tools and see how I can refine the things I do so I can then be a better map maker when I'm working with other people. Rearranging information, land class, land use data, kind of thing that I see really often in the spatial work that I do with researchers, but wanting to see it represented in a different way. And so finding icons, the kind of thing that would come out of like a 1940s architectural booklet, the little graphic representations of trees and bushes and that sort of thing, which I used to be obsessed with as a kid, and turning them into representations of particular kinds of land class and taking geographic data and swapping the icons for the land class values. And then just more abstractions of terrain and geography and topography again. And also playing with tools that aren't meant to be geospatial tools in the first place, or map making tools. So this is stipple relief. This is a close-up of a much larger map of Yosemite Valley. And it's just finding a tool that takes black and white photography and represents it as a stipple pattern instead. And it's not meant for making maps, but if I play with the data that I'm working with to give it in the right way, it spits out what looks like a shaded relief map, but in this stipple pattern. So these are the kinds of things I do for myself, again, because it's stuff that I find interesting. I think it's a good exercise for me to kind of keep that creative side of my brain working, which then kind of helps me with the more technical work I do here at Stanford. But again, it's stuff I think is cool and fun, and I want to make it, and so I make it for myself. I have a lot of these things hanging on my walls. But knowing that I'm part of this big tribe of map nerds out there are a lot of other people who just think stuff like this is cool. And they don't have the really simple technical, none of this stuff is really difficult to make for me. This is pretty mashup kind of stuff. I'm not really doing any real artistry here. But because I have the skills and the tools at hand, I can make them, and then I can sort of put them online, and other people can have them and buy them. And I've been surprised by the number of people who actually want some of these dumb things to like buy and put on their wall. So that's my background. That's my talk. I don't know how much time is left, but I'm happy to answer specific questions about this stuff.
We can take one or two questions. Yeah, Louise, Evan, go ahead.
Artistic work. Are you using digital tools outside of the GIS realm? For example, all of these new painterly, you can pretty much do anything now digitally using kind of digital art media. Are you venturing into that space, or is all of this GIS?
No, it's primarily with graphic design tools. So that's kind of how I learned to be a cartographer. I went to, I got my undergrad as a geography GIS specialist at Sonoma State University. I specifically did not take a cartography course because I knew that was too technical, and I wasn't suited for sort of the really high degree of accuracy involved in doing map making. I picked GIS instead. Knowing I would never do this kind of work, got my degree and promptly went to work at AAA as a digital cartographer for some reason. Spent 10 years there learning how to use Adobe Illustrator and other graphic design tools to make roadmaps. At the same time, they still had their photographic maps being made in the background. So I was part of the digital cartography team. So that's the tool set I use. And then I ended up going back to GIS later, and now it's a composite of those things. I get to use GIS tools to help me extract and massage and manipulate data that I then bring into my graphic design tools so I can do other stuff with it.
Great, thank you. I think we're going to actually keep moving here.
Yep, that's fine. Thank you.
And keep going. Thank you.